afternoon, everyone. Goedemiddag voor de Nederlands sprekende. We're going to do this session in English. This session is the 12th Ask Me Anything session. We're going to talk about how to set up Sigrid. That's the main topic, but also later in this session, our Academy expert, Leon, will talk about the newly introduced Academy. He'll show you around and what it looks like. Briefly, before I hand over my microphone to Jamal, who's sitting next to me, introducing Sigrid. You probably already know it, but the platform is your one-point solution for software assurance. So it is working at the software assurance governance and control level, making sure you can do anything like security reporting or migration support, anything that you want to do with your software from a high-level helicopter view. Then from the bottom up, you can look at it from a continuous learning perspective, where developers and architects and product owners are supported to continuously understand what is changing and also standardize the way of working. And then last, but definitely not least, it's about prioritization. We all know that you have teams working on your software and those teams can't do everything. So you need to start somewhere. And this somewhere is what Sigrid does for you. So Sigrid scans, ranks, and recommends everything that you need to manage your IT portfolio from a code level perspective. But how does this actually work in your process? And this process is something that Jamal is going to talk about today. So I'll hand over the word to him. Please, whenever you have questions, do interrupt, speak up. I'll make sure that you can talk out loud or leave them into the Q&A or chat. So I'll let them know and I'll hand them over to Jamal.
Thank you very much, Hugo. So as Hugo said, I'm Jamal Husni. I am a business consultant and also a project management. In my day-to-day business, I always talk to our clients about their development process and how Sigrid as a platform could support that as the quality assurance platform. So as you all know, we in this new world, we all work in agile-like way of working, I would say, in sprints. And most of the people ask us, how can I implement Sigrid in my day-to-day business, in my development process, but also in my governance framework. So I will start with the implementation part because it's more related to this session. So usually, development teams start with the sprint planning. They look at issues and stories they want to put on the backlog. And here is also a good question to ask as a product owner: how much time is that going to cost me? All stories are alike, or is it also related to the quality of the specific part of code that I'm going to be working on? Then you have the sprint backlog planning. And of course, one of major question is how quickly can we do that? Is it the same time? Is it the same effort, the same capabilities or capacities, sorry. And then we start development phase. And during that development phase, you are always depending on your peer developer or other colleague to do the review and the quality checks for you. So how could you also gain the help and support from Sigrid in that phase? One of the major questions that you would like to ask afterwards in the sprint review: how did we do in terms of quality? How did we do in terms of support? And the recently pushed functionalities, how did they impact the overall quality of our system? And this is something that you can also handle in Sigrid via the Delta quality pages, but also in the sprint retrospective. In generally speaking, if you look at all that input, all those functionalities, all the commits that were done, what the impact on was on the overall architecture of that specific system. So those are questions and cases where Sigrid as a platform could help you with. Of course, that process of implementation of Sigrid is a long process. We usually start after signing the contract with the client, and we start an onboarding phase, which is technical onboarding / Sigrid rollout, where we get the code in the platform. Of course, we do the scoping, the taxonomy of the system or systems that you have in your portfolio. We look at the code, and after the base and the first scoping and result validation, we start thinking about the goals that the specific company is interested in terms of quality of non-functionals, most likely. Then we do the training on the platform, how you can make the best of your time with Sigrid and the licenses that you have. And then we do a baseline reporting where we give our expert opinion on the technical findings and the situation in the status quo. After that, we compare that with the goals, business goals that a specific company has, and then we set and fine-tune those goals per system. And then it's time actually for you as a team to master the platform, to integrate it in your own day-to-day business. And of course, it is a continuous improvement thing. So it's going to be fine-tuning the goals every time, and then the coaching and support that you can get from our team. So if we can also narrow down that process and the whole implementation roadmap to the current stage, in this context, it is the onboarding and Sigrid rollout plan. Then we have specific steps that we would like to cover, starting from technical onboarding. And in this case, technical means basically that we get the code that we should monitor, the code that you are responsible for maintaining. And this is actually everything that you are managing as code, but also not only your own code, but also the third-party libraries that you are using in your own systems. And that is a step that we do usually with a technical team, most likely a lead developer or a developer who's working on day-to-day on the pipeline. Most likely it's going to be an automated pipeline. So we also have a process on how to set up the environment, how we get the code in, how we add users, enable them to add other users, enable them to review the code. Once that is done, we look at the self-service onboarding phase, when we target that people are self-empowered, especially nowadays terms, you see that development teams are more autonomous. They work like self-managed. They work in their own teams, and it's not centrally managed. So that's why it's important that we have a quality responsible, or maybe a quality admin in each team that is able to manage that in Sigrid, him or herself. So that phase of self-service onboarding and training is very important and crucial. It's also important to know that there are some accountability in place, so that people who are feeling responsible to implement this. And a part of that phase is also enabling the context of each system, what we call in Sigrid metadata. So this is actually for each system, you can assign the goals and evaluate the severity, I would say, based on the context of that system. To give an example, a specific security finding could be of a different severity if you compare the same finding in two different systems with two different contexts. An internally only used system in comparison with how do you say that, an internet facing, client facing system where you can actually access it via the web. So the severity could actually differ, but in order to get the right results in Sigrid, you also need to get the right context in place. How can I do that technical onboarding in order to onboard your code, to send all the code that you have? Actually, you can do that via reading our documentation on Sigrid. So if you do have a Sigrid account, you can find that in this icon here, the book icon that I am annotating or hovering on. If you do not have that account, or you are not looked into Sigrid, you can also access this documentation page via the web. So let's suppose that I clicked here. So this is the Sigrid environment for an open demo that I will demonstrate today. And if I click here, I go to the publicly shown or publicly available documentation. So this is an extensive piece of documentation and manual, I would say. It's about functionality, but also about our methodology. You can see that it has a lot of information. I would say if you don't know anything about Sigrid, this is the right place to start the introduction, the roles, and our approach, where we also explain where are these measurements and quality scores coming from. As you may know, mainly we rely on the ISO standards for quality assurance and software quality. There are also other standards and other frameworks and models that we use. So these are to cover in our approach page. But now that we are dealing with like the onboarding and technical onboarding, the first step actually is to go to how to set up Sigrid. And here you get an idea about the things that I was just explaining in general, like before you start, what should you do, talking about the licensing, talking about onboarding people, and talking about onboarding systems. And before I dive into onboarding systems, I'm curious if we do have already some questions about this. So before jumping into Sigrid, then this is the place to be in order to know how to onboard systems to Sigrid. We usually advise to take a step towards the Sigrid CI integration, because it's like an automated integration into the pipeline. So this depends on what kind of pipeline you use. Usually it goes via the Sigrid user. So you create a user within Sigrid. Let me go here. So this is the list of users that somebody has, and you create a user, and then that user should have a specific token. So if I am here and I go to my own user, and then I click on user setting, I can create my own token. And then once you create that, you copy that and you use it in the integration and the pipeline integration or the script that you are using to onboard your own systems. And that, of course, depends on what kind of a system you are using. So I would prefer to explain Sigrid CI integration at first. Of course, a manual upload is available, but usually it's not our big preference for many reasons, and also that of preferences of our clients, because once you set up the automated upload right once, that you don't need to interfere anymore. So let's suppose that you have you are working on Azure DevOps or maybe GitLab. You select that specific page related to your own pipeline, and there you see an explanation about what you should do or what the steps are in order to get the code on Sigrid. I think these information also speak for themselves, so I wouldn't like start reading the manual now. But if you do have questions, please let me know. Usually it's actually a matter of a script that is already done here, and then you can only like change the variables here. The example of customer name here, you can actually, depending on the name of your own company and the name of the system that you are onboarding, we get an idea of how many systems you have, and also what the taxonomy is of your portfolio. I think I have a couple of minutes to show one more thing, if there are no questions in the chat.
No, at this point, there are no questions.
Yes. So let's suppose that the happy flow worked this time and we got all the code that we want. Yes, go to open demo. This is how it would look like. This is a portfolio of 77 systems that we have. This is all open source systems, so I may show these systems for you. This is the portfolio overview. Actually, it is a managerial dashboard where you show all the risk categories, what we call also capabilities that you are managing, or you are like we are measuring for you and monitoring. This time I'm grouping based on the team. So as you see here, there are like back-end development teams, OS teams, research, etc. And in each team, you see that there are a portfolio or like a bucket of systems that specific team is managing. The coloring is giving an idea about how well the code is doing in comparison with our benchmark. As you might know, our benchmark is divided to 5 levels. The third level is market average, when we call it also 3 stars. So everything that you see in yellow is market average. It's doing relatively average to the IT market. green is actually better, above market average, and orange is below market average. If you are asking about yourself about like why some things are bigger or boxes bigger than the others, this is the relative rebuild volume. So we measure also volume, not only in lines of code, but also in technology based. So it has to do also with the productivity factor of that specific technology. If your system has multiple technologies, of course, we can also translate that to multiple technologies and productivity factors. And we explain that in something we call person years or development years. So let's suppose that your system exists of like 9,000 lines of code of Java, and that is actually the productivity factor for a whole year for one FTE. Then we say that this system of 9,000 lines of code is 1 year of rebuild value. And this is all theoretical, of course, but it's important factor to take into consideration when you are measuring maintainability efforts, rebuilding efforts and capacities and budgeting, etc. I would like to talk like for hours about this, but it's not the subject of this session, but this is the end result of a successful onboarding. Should you have any problems or encounter any questions or burdens during the onboarding, the technical onboarding, we have a whole team, support team that's responsible for your questions and helping you. So please, once you started, let us know what you think about this and the process and whether we can help you. Thank you very much. Do you have questions now?
At the moment, there are no questions, but I might launch a poll. I mean, I'm curious about Sigrid CI. We were talking about that just a little bit before.
Yeah.
I'm curious as how many of you already have Sigrid CI running. So we have a very short question. Do you have that running or not? Or are you planning to? We're curious to get to know, and maybe we can get into a bit more details of that if you want us to. I see overwhelmingly yeses coming in. So that's good to know. All right, this is the result. So all of you that responded said yes, we already have it running. That's good to know. I'd say then maybe there's nothing to explain on this part apart from maybe the process that you can use it for and use it with.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's time to go back to you, Hugo.
Thank you, Jamal, for now. We're now going to head over to our other speaker of the day, who is Leon. Leon is going to introduce the newly launched Academy. Leon is our senior instructional designer and Academy lead. Leon, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I trust you can see my screen right now.
Yes, I do.
So yes, it's actually it's quite an interesting thing to share. The Academy has been revamped. I don't know how many of you have already been to the Academy that we had before. I'm kind of curious how many of you have perhaps been on the previous Academy. Maybe you can let me know in the chat. I'm kind of curious about this. But yes, so what does it mean that the Academy has been revamped? So basically, we have actually opened up a new Academy in place of the old one. And we have made sure that all the content is actually, we've revitalized the content, revised some of the content, and we're going to now build on this content that is aligned with what Jamal just showed during the documentation. So for today, we'll have a quick look at how you can actually access the Academy, a quick walkthrough on how to navigate the Academy, what different things are available to you in the Academy. We're going to talk about what things you can find in the Academy and what things will be coming to the Academy. So before talking any more about that, let's just head on over to Sigrid, because this is actually the #1 way to enter the Academy. So when you are on your dashboard, right up here where you have the documentation icon, you also have one for the Academy. And when you click on that, it takes you directly to your learning environment. Now this is going to be, you are automatically going to be here as a learner, and you'll see a few courses that will automatically be assigned to you. These particular ones are made out of a few different units, and you can see the units of the course underneath it. By completing all three, you will have completed this particular training. And it is also important to note that you can find more courses within the course catalog, but we'll dig into that a bit later. First, I want to break down a bit about what you are seeing here on this home screen. So right at the top of the courses that you have a few options to change the aesthetics of how you view your trainings. Because if you are like me, you might eventually end up with a lot of different trainings, and then having big images for each one might be a bit difficult to keep track of. This makes it a bit easier. So that's actually easy to toggle in and out of. Up here on the top right, you see the grid and list form. So if you click list form, you'll see the trainings this way. You can also, of course, choose to hide or show the different sections. I personally prefer this if it's manageable. You do have also this info box, which gives you an idea of just how your training is going. It's a bit of a summary on how your training is going, how many courses you have currently in progress, etc. You can see how many certificates you have. If you want to learn more about these statistics on how you are doing with your training, you can of course go into your progress, and I'll show you over here on this one, because I have a few more courses and trainings completed. If you see this on the right hand side, you will see a button set that says progress, and clicking on that takes you to a to a different screen in which you can see how you have been doing with regards to your learning. May be interesting to you, it may not. You can learn a bit more about what the courses are and what your progress is for the different courses. How long have you been taking on the different courses, etc. So these are just interesting things to kind of look at. But let's go back to the course catalog. So this is the other thing that's going to be the most important thing for you. And that is that even though you are automatically assigned to certain courses, you also have the possibility of assigning courses to yourself. And you can do that then by traveling to the course catalog. And in here, you will see every single course available, also the ones included within the learning paths that you may already have been given. So you will see here, you have this course, but you also see the units that are contained within the course that you may already have. So what the point of this is, you can actually pinpoint exactly what course you want to have a look at when. This is a bit of it's a very short tour of that, but you can of course feel free to explore each and every single course and have a look at what information you will get out of it. The content is in line with everything from the documentation, and just in case you want to see what the documentation has to say on a particular topic, you can, of course, on the right-hand side menu, you can also travel to the documentation, just as you did through Sigrid. You also have the possibility of going from the Academy directly to the documentation, as well as you can return to Sigrid. Last but not least, you do have also the possibility of searching courses using the search bar at the top, on both up here and over here. You can search for any course. So we could say, maybe let's talk about, we want to know about Mendix. And if you write Mendix, it will, oh, not in this one. If you look for that, it'll showcase all the courses that have Mendix. So that's about yeah, this is what the Academy looks like when you're a user. It is really simple to just move around in the content. I do want to showcase one thing. So we're going to actually just open up one course. And that is this particular button at the bottom. This simply states what the status is of the training that you are doing. Because we have not completed this course yet, it says incomplete. That said, once you have finished running through the entire course, this will eventually say complete, and it'll be clear to you that you have completed this particular unit. When you are doing a course, it walks you through the information in the beginning, but important to know is that you can open up this side menu and you can navigate regardless of whether you have completed the content in the page you are in. You can navigate all the way to whatever section you want. You can do that by either clicking on the section itself, or you can do a search. Important to note is that if you don't see this as fully complete, you will see a little tick. If this is not fully complete, then when you get all the way to complete course, the course will actually not be fully completed until you have covered every single chapter. Only then will this button at the bottom change to complete. Curious if there are any questions from the chat. Oh, you're muted, Hugo.
Sorry for that. There was a question, an open question still. Can I already share this with my team, and can I track how they are doing?
Yes, so the Academy is already open to everyone. So you can, of course, any person who has access to Sigrid can access the Academy, and you access it from the moment you click this button, you automatically receive your account within the Academy. Once you are in there, if there are particular people that want to keep track of this, this is something we can look into how we want to approach this. At the moment, we have not set up branch or people managers, but we can run reports, for example, and things like that. So that can be done and can be looked into how the training is going for your particular company.
All right. There are no more questions in the chat, but I have one, I think, to you guys. I mean, we've been not per se to you, Leon, yet. I hope there will be some questions from the audience. So, for example, I know we've introduced the Academy to, for example, support the self-service onboarding of people, right, at our customers. And my question to the audience is, I have a very short poll for that as well. One question. Do you have regular changes in your team? Do you have regularly new people joining your team? And would a solution like this support the self-serviceness? We do currently support you in onboarding, but we also think that there might be some things that you can do yourself. This is one of the ways to do that. The yes is winning. So let me see. We see that the yes multiple times per year and yes sometimes are more than the stability of teams. So I think Leon, this is a very nice a very nice thing to support that.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, so just to kind of clarify, the point of the Academy is to indeed help all of our users kind of feel empowered and feel free to kind of take control of their learning and development of knowledge within Sigrid. So yes, it's very nice to see this response.
All right.
Yeah.
There are no more questions at this point. If there are any questions later on, guys, you know where to find us. You know where to how to reach out to me, to Jamal, to Leon. We'll handle your questions. Also, the Academy, this is just a starting point. It's about to grow. There will be more and more courses, if I'm not mistaken. Leon, I see you nodding.
Yeah, that's correct.
So if there's something that you want, please let us know, because it may not be there yet. And if you have any suggestions, also, we are there to support you in that.
Yeah. Yeah, just to round off on that comment, Ugo. So there is a survey that will be attached to several of the courses in the Academy. That upon completing courses, you will receive this survey in which you can state, for example, how useful a particular course is to you, how much help did it offer, what maybe you were missing, or what topics you would like to have covered, maybe additional courses that you would like to have covered. We have, of course, our own list of trainings that are going to be coming your way through the Academy, but it's very interesting to hear directly from the users of the Academy what courses and topics they would like to have covered and dive a bit deeper into.
Yeah.
But yes, that's it from my side.
On the brink of leaving you go, Leon, there's one more question. I saw there are a couple of courses available. We see them here on your screen as well.
Yes.
Is there a kind of flow that you should follow typically? Where to start?
Yeah. So indeed, and I think that's very easy to see here. So actually, when you join the Academy, the very first courses you receive are Introduction or Admin's Introduction. This does not mean you have to complete everything that is on your dashboard, but these offer the basic knowledge for Sigrid. And as you'll see, the bottom two options in this trajectory are grayed out. So until you complete Getting Started with Sigrid, which which introduces you a little bit into what learning at the Academy is, and a bit of some very basic insight on what Sigrid is and does for you, then you can learn a bit more about what these different capabilities that Jamal was talking about and what they cover. And they talk about part one covers portfolio level, and part two goes a bit deeper into system level. So I would definitely recommend, if you're starting with the Academy for the very beginning, these are the best way to start. We do have also some courses that you will see here, which are these learning paths, which include, well, you have Sigrid within the agile development process, which actually should be completed in collaboration with the enterprise architect and the product owner. We do have other learning paths that will also be coming this way. And each of these, so the enterprise architect, product owner, they will eventually receive more and more courses that align with the different functions of Sigrid users. So it doesn't mean that you are closed out to one type. You will have to see which functionalities match your particular role, but this allows you to identify what tasks you can cover within Sigrid.
All right, thank you. Are there any last questions to Leon? If any. I don't think so. Thank you, Leon. Thanks again for showing this. We will continue with next question, which already was answered in the chat or in the Q&A, to be more specific, by Jamal. I think I'll hand over to Jamal with the question: What do you do? What do you classify as a system? Is it a repository? Is it a product? Is it something else? Maybe Jamal, you can show that around in what it looks like in Sigrid.
So this is a religious discussion, I would say sometimes. So what's a system? So we define four conceptual levels, 4 levels of a system. an overall product with specific functionalities, or maybe one functionality or set of functionalities, divided by components, which are the high-level blocks that you can put in your files or your modules in, which leaves us with the third level, which is a module level, and the fourth level is the unit level. And those are maybe new terms for you, but in order to be able to work with an agnostic approach, technology agnostic tooling, you need to create some kind of definitions that could be applicable to different technologies. So a unit is the smallest piece of code that is could be executed by its own. It could be a functionality in Java. It could be a method in C#. A module is more the file where you put all those codes or units in, which is usually also a file in Java, or maybe a class in C#. And the component is where you have, based on the functionalities of those units or files, you put them in blocks, and that's actually the component level, what we have, or the high level folder. And those modules and components will interact with each other. So usually we start asking the question for new teams, like, could you draw a design picture maybe of your system? Then they start with boxes and lines, and those boxes would usually be the components. So how does this look like in Sigrid? If we go to Sigrid and we show a specific system, so this is a portfolio overview in which you can see multiple systems for multiple teams. So let's look at a utility development team. They have multiple systems. One of them is, for instance, Artemis. If I click through, go to maintainability, I see those blocks, which are the components that I just talked about. And if you want to have like an architecture view of that specific system, this is architecture page explorer. Then you see those boxes and how they interact with each other. Now, it would be sometimes interesting to click through, of course, and see how the system looks like from intern. So this is the whole box that I clicked now. And now you see also the files in between. Sometimes it's easier to look at the folder. So how those repos are structured. So these are the high-level repos in this case, or components. And then those are the files within. Hopefully this gives a clear answer. Any questions?
Well, maybe I have a question that you, in the beginning of the presentation, you talked about how different applications can have different views, right? So, for example, an application is internet facing, or an application is really internal to your organization. I'm curious how this shows in Sigrid, and maybe you can show a bit around what that means, for example, for when you're looking at security. So I can imagine if you have an internet-facing application, it has a different implication for its security outcome. Maybe you can show a bit of that.
Yeah, so basically there are multiple ways of grouping. Usually we have filters here that has to do with the team, the supplier, the life cycle phase. But the thing that I mentioned about the deployment type was like, is it internal, is it public facing? So when you slice and dice within this functionality, and let's talk about security for now. For maintainability is something that is important, but more related to business criticality, for instance. But for development type, I would find security and open source health more relevant. So if I click on security, it's pretty intimidating because you see a lot of red. Unfortunately, red is not looking good usually, and a few green blocks here. So this gives an idea about, do we have risks or findings that could be related and mapped to risks in the public facing, for instance, or in the internal and connected. A way, maybe a practical way to use this information is to prioritize where you want to begin with. So usually I want to be also honest about like how do we interact with the clients in such a case, because this is not like an edge case, by the way. You see in the security that we don't always follow the best practices, also in open source health part, which is the open source systems management. So we usually say, if it's public facing and it has red, it's priority number one. And then you go to connected. systems, and afterwards, if you still have time and capacity, you go to internal, because the risk of exploiting a specific risk in a public facing system is higher. So if I click on that particular system here, it gives me also a dashboard of the exploitability factor and also the impact that the specific finding could have. And there are multiple ways of filtering here that could narrow down, make this a little bit smaller in order to make it readable, to narrow down all the findings that you have. Now, important to note here again, these are findings based on analytic analysis, and these all need to be refined. So let's suppose that I have this view in my system. I will go to the critical ones. Of course, you can filter here which one are the criticals, but you can also, if they are mapped to specific model, usually the model that we use is OWASP 10, but of course you can use other ones. And if I dive through, you see that some of them are new. So that means that this finding was introduced in the latest upload, giving a specific time period. Most of them are raw, unfortunately, so they are not still touched. There are some remarks that we also generate. But I would say if you click through one of them, you see where the finding is coming from. You see the severity, a little bit of explanation, also a link to the weakness, because we worked based on the CVE. If you click, you also get a link about what this finding is and what does it mean. But for people who are less familiar with security findings and have less experience, we have also introduced a new tooling or functionality that generates, based on our AI database, what kind of a problem is here. So why is this a severity? And how could you solve that to mitigate this risk, I would say, and all the risks that are that surrounding this particular finding, with a lot of references if you are interested. Now, it's important to mention here that for this AI-empowered functionality, we don't use, the code examples that you have or your code in order to generate or troubleshoot or prompt any questions to the AI. So your code stays here, but we have a huge set of rules that looks at a specific functionality and the way that it's written, and then based on that input, we can generate a possible way to solve it. So that helps also in the refinement process.
Yeah, all right. That's also directly answering one of the open questions. Do you use my code or this code to train this large language model? The answer is no, we do not. No.
And if you are interested, here you see generated by Sigrid AI assistants. If you want to learn more, you just click through, and again, you go to our Sigrid documentation, and here it's extensively explained that we don't use your code. Also, one of the questions that we usually get. Indeed.
Thank you for the question. When you opened that system, Jamal, I also saw briefly that there is something with objectives.
Yeah.
We had a very intimidating or daunting page with on the portfolio level overview with everything dark red.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at the objectives, then maybe not everything is prioritized.
Very good question, actually. So there are two things that we usually work on. You have the benchmarking, as I mentioned. So we have like levels of quality, and you have the context-related quality. In this case, you see that for this giving system, we have a specific set of rules or objectives that we defined for that specific system. Those are not per se 100% one to map to our own benchmark. As you see here, the current state is this, and this is the target, but usually I would like to have a higher target. So what Hugo was referring to is when I went to security, for instance, this is benchmark data, so or risk-based data, but sometimes you need to rate that by your own objectives, and in this case, you see a lot less red in the picture. So that means that for specific risks, those teams decided to accept that risk. So they know that it's there, but for now it's not a priority, or they just lowered the bar for themselves in specific rules. And that's totally fine if that's agreed within a specific organization. And this is more appropriate to start with if you want to prioritize anything. So if we go back to that deployment type, you see that for public-facing systems, now only 4 or 5 systems have red view, which is actually, you already know where to start, right? So you start here by those 5, and then you get to connected, which are also having some link with the internet, with like via an API or something. And, you know, finally you get to the internal systems and you start working on it. Thanks for the addition.
All right. Are there any more questions? We are nearing towards the end of the hour already. Are your questions answered? Are there any open questions that you may want us to touch upon? There's one question coming in. Does accepting a risk affect the score?
It depends. The score relates to mainly for now one thing, that's maintainability, and the score is benchmark data. So actually it's not affecting that, no, but it affects your own priorities, your own list. So risk accepted at your end doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
All right. Then the second question, if we accept the risk, will it return if the relevant file is changed in a new commit?
Once a specific file that has not been removed is, you know, changed, altered, the filing, it doesn't come back, no. So uploads, Sigrid will remember in each upload that this risk or this finding for a specific unit is accepted, because usually the findings are on unit level. So it's kind of a self-learning platform.
All right. I hope that answered your question.
But if you delete the whole file and then just reintroduce it, this is another story, which we don't, of course, recommend, and doesn't happen much, but yeah.
Then a follow-up question again from Tijmen. Does Sigrid learn about similar findings if we mark something as false positive?
This is a very good question. Actually, I wouldn't know the answer directly, but if the whole category is selected or mitigated, usually it learns it by itself. That we do have a functionality to categorize based on the findings. So if you have a whole, you know, category of findings that you know for sure that it's not relevant for you, like a license issue or like open source issue, then you can just select all and then remark it as false positive, and then it will learn based on that.
So partially at least.
So partially,
right?
partially at least, but of course, yeah, we need to have a specific example to deal with it.
Yeah. If there are no more questions, I think I'm going to take over the screen. I will enable my audio and start talking. Guys, so perfect. Thank you. I'll again share my screen. Wait, just before we go, there's one more question. Tijmen asked, last one, is it possible to adjust the risk profile skills for a specific indicators? For example, for unit interface, the number of parameters is taken into account and the skill is 0, 2, 6, 2, 4, 6. Would it be possible to alter the skill?
No, it is not possible to alter the scale because these thresholds are, you know, based on the benchmark. So regardless of the technology, I have the feeling that this question has to do with the specific technology. But what we can do is to lower the threshold of your objective. So instead of asking the system to get 4 stars rating, we could say for that specific system and specific technology that they are using, like for instance, if it's like majorly database or SQL, we know that this is not realistic to get the same thresholds, but then you can lower the bar for the objective of that specific system. And then if you rate by completeness, so if you look at the objectives view, as we just showed for security, you have a different view than the view that you see in the benchmark.
Yeah, so the answer is no, you can't change it, but we do that because of our benchmark, because of the objectivity of the data that we show, if I summarize this correctly. And then next to that, you have the objectives, which you can change and set according to your own standards. So no, but with a good reason. There's more to it. And I think you can find more information about that, by the way, also in documentation, as well as in a next session, which is upcoming. But first, thanks, by the way, Tijmen, for all your questions. If you have more questions, do let me know. Do reach out. I mean, we're here for any of you to help you out. As for the next steps, we want to round up or wrap up this session. The onboarding steps that we discussed today are in the documentation. In documentation, you can find in the leftmost QR code. There is a list of frequently asked questions as well. Again, in the documentation, you can navigate there, but you can also scan the QR code and go there. And lastly, but not least, definitely, we introduced or briefly discussed the Sigrid Academy that Leon just introduced. Much more you can find in the documentation, but I already said that. Then this session is recorded. Last sessions that we did were also recorded, and we made sure to publish a curated set of those videos online. So you can find them on our YouTube page. If you scan this QR code or search for Sigrid, Ask Me Anything or AMA, you find all the sessions that we did in the past. So you can find more about Sigrid introduction, more about the objectives and setting metadata that we discussed today, the new features like architecture quality, or maybe even more frequently asked questions together with Michiel Kuipers, the one that you now see on screen. Then last but definitely not least, next month there will not be an Ask Me Anything session, but instead we will organize an IT leadership conference called Scope 2024. This is different from an AMA. It's an in-person session here in Amsterdam. More information about that you can find when you scan the QR code. You can also sign up. You are most welcome to join us. We will talk about our benchmark, so you'll learn more about what we did. We will talk more about AI with our own specialists, and there will be external speakers, of which one of them at least will be someone from Microsoft. So more of that and more of the program to come, but at least the 29th of May here in Amsterdam, you are more than welcome to join us. That said, it's almost 4. I want to thank you for your attendance. I want to thank you for your questions, and I hope to see you all in May here in Amsterdam, and after that, later on in June for the next Ask Me Anything session. Thank you for joining.